Welcome to Politics for Patriots. Here's your host, the eviscerator of progressive nonsense, the executioner of imbecility, and the grim reaper of BS, Eddie Zipper.
All right, welcome to episode number 72 of the Politics for Patriots podcast. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go to iTunes, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get podcasts and subscribe. And remember, every time you subscribe to a conservative podcast, a liberal somewhere sheds a tear.
No, wait, let me say something.
There's this movie I saw when I was a teenager called Mars Attacks. And it's a terrible movie. Don't go watch it. But it did have one really funny part. It was the only decent part of the entire movie, which is why I still remember it all these years later. Basically, what happens, these Martians come to Earth, and Earth greets them peacefully, and then the head Martian says,
"We come in peace."
And everyone is relieved. And then the Martians all bust out their ray guns and start killing everybody. And then toward the end of the movie, after they've destroyed like half of Earth's population, they're still going around saying it.
"We come in peace."
And that is literally exactly what the Democratic Party is like. They keep telling the lie long after any reasonable person still believes it. This is especially noticeable right now because so much of the news is Democratic presidential candidates pandering to the far left. And wow, are they ever pandering hard. And the theme of this episode is going to be why even reasonable Democrats pander so hard to the far left. It'll take me a minute to get there, but in the end, that's what it's going to be about. It's going to be about why even reasonable Democrats pander so hard to this nutty far left movement. All right, but first I got to tell you all about how they're operating, okay? All along, the Democrats say, "We come in peace," but they are really ray gun wielding maniacs. Exhibit A. One of their biggest criticisms of President Trump is that he allegedly attacks our norms. They love using the word norms. They wring their hands and they go, "Oh my gosh, our norms, our sweet precious norms, and Trump is just busting them up." The Democratic Party loves norms so much. They're telling us that every single day. Our constitutional norms, they sometimes say. Our separation of powers. Okay, so instead of saying,
"We come in peace,"
they're instead saying, "We come to protect the norms." But what are they doing at the exact same time? They're firing their Martian ray guns at every norm that we have. All right, there's a big push among Dem primary candidates to eliminate the Electoral College. You've heard all about that. I'm not going to get too far into it because I think that discussion is all discussed out. But there's this big push. They keep saying, "Oh, get rid of the Electoral College." That's in the Constitution, and literally every single presidential election in American history has been decided by the Electoral College. It doesn't get any more normal than the Electoral College. So if you love norms so much, why are you trying to abolish things that are in the Constitution? Those are the most fundamental norms that have shaped what this country is, and you want to get rid of them. Why are you saying protect the norms when you want to destroy the most foundational of all norms? Okay, and the Electoral College is one of the most foundational of all norms. Okay, when the Electoral College walks into a bar, everyone in the bar goes, "Norm!" That's how normy it is. But they say, well, this country was founded on the democratic idea of one person, one vote. That's just a platitude. It really actually was not at all founded on that. The country, at the time of its founding,
I'm here to help you with your history report,
was much less democratic than it is now. You know how picking the president began? There weren't great big primary elections when everybody went and voted for who they wanted the party primary or the party nominee to be. That didn't exist. The party caucuses in Congress just chose the party's candidates for president. And then the electors that go to the Electoral College, they chose from those candidates. There wasn't a popular vote until the election of 1824. Okay, the process is way more democratic now than it was at the beginning. Look at some other things. Several of the candidates want to pack the Supreme Court. Nowhere in the Constitution, this isn't a constitutional norm. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say there shall be 9 judges of the Supreme Court. Okay, Congress gets to decide that. But 9 justices is literally the perfect example of a norm. And Democrats say they come to protect the norms. And then they say, let's put 15 justices on the Supreme Court. We come to protect the norms, but let's put 15 justices on the Supreme Court.
We come in peace.
You know what Beto O'Rourke's idea for the Supreme Court is? This is his idea for what this really is, which is how to get liberals onto the Supreme Court. Here's Beto's idea. What if there were 5 justices selected by Democrats, 5 justices selected by Republicans, and those 10 then picked 5 more justices independent of those who chose the first 10? This pause exists on purpose. This is me taking in the stupidity of that idea. Long pause. That is so stupid and anti-constitutional, I don't even have words for it. The separation of powers are so important that let's take a power that constitutionally belongs to the executive branch and let's give it to political parties. What a great idea. Let's purposely make the Supreme Court more partisan. F***ing brilliant, Beto. You know, what a great way for us to end up with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the Supreme Court. Justice Ocasio-Cortez, should we grant certiorari to this petitioner?
I am not the expert.
How wonderful would that be? All right, great idea, Beto, really. The framers of the Constitution said the executive shall nominate and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint judges of the Supreme Court. But, hey everyone, Beto has a different idea. I mean, that should be the last line of the Constitution. It should be Constitution, 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 Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, Article 4, Article 5, Article 7, and then Article 8 should be one sentence, and it should just say, oh, unless Beto has a better idea. Hey, here's another one. Nobody wants to take away your guns.
We come in peace.
Literally, the number one thing that they want to do is take away your guns on the far left. They talk about it almost all the time. The Second Amendment is archaic. It only refers to militias. Hey, look how great New Zealand is. They're banning guns. Eric Swalwell is going to run for the Democratic nomination on a specifically anti-Second Amendment platform. Here's another great one. Democrats are for border security. Nobody is talking about having open borders.
We come in peace.
Anybody seen Julian Castro's immigration plan? He wants to decriminalize illegally crossing the border. He wants it not to be a crime to illegally cross the border. You think we have a problem now? What is that? That's open borders. If it's not illegal to cross the border, then we have open borders. And he's not the only one. The Democratic Party is dead set on making sure that we have a constant crisis at the border. Right? These policies like catch and release. Oh, don't build any barriers. They won't build barriers. Don't be tough on Mexico. Let's build sanctuary cities to protect people who are here illegally from the law. What do you mean you're for border security? You're not for border security. You're lying.
We come in peace.
The good news is that the Democratic candidates cannot do most of what they're proposing because so much of it requires constitutional amendments, right? Betos' court-packing idea, getting rid of the Electoral College, letting 16-year-old vote. They'd let 12-year-old votes if they could, right? So much of what they're saying right now they can't actually do. They can't do it because it requires constitutional amendments. Article 5 of the Constitution is currently the only paragraph standing between us and the destructive ideas of the Democratic Party. Article 5 sets forth what is required in order to ratify the Constitution. So you want to get rid of the Electoral College? Fine. It'll require 67 senators and 290 representatives just to propose the amendment. And then step 2, it'll take 38 state legislatures in order to ratify the amendment. Same with Betos' stupid Supreme Court plan. I'm telling you, people who understand how our government works just feel completely sickened by the illiteracy of some of these moronic ideas. All right, but abolish the Electoral College, Betos' Supreme Court plan, letting 12-year-olds vote. They can't actually do any of that. You have to get 38 state legislatures on board. That is never happening. You'll never get the supermajorities you need in Congress just to propose it. I mean, think about how hard it is to get those supermajorities. They couldn't even get 67 senators and 290 representatives in order to override President Trump's veto on the resolution to kill his national emergency. You think they can get it to abolish the Electoral College? No! And even if they got it, you will never dig up 38 states who want to surrender their power to California and New York for short-term political gains. You would need, in order to do it, if you're going to abolish the Electoral College, let 16-year-old, whatever, you need every single blue state that went for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election to get on board. And then you would need 18 states that went for President Trump. Conservatives honestly shouldn't even bother defending the Electoral College with arguments. The conversation should go like this. A Democrat says, I don't understand how federalism works, so we need to abolish the Electoral College. And then you say, okay, here's a map of the United States. You point to the 18 red states on this map who will ratify that amendment. If you can point to those states, I'll argue with you about the Electoral College. Because guess what? They can't point to those states. The Democrats running for president are pandering so hard right now because they are absolutely terrified of the radical left. The pandering is shameful. They know that they cannot really accomplish these things that they're suggesting. They're relying on what Jonathan Gruber called, you remember this? The stupidity of the American voter. You remember Jonathan Gruber?
This bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes. If CBO scored the mandate as taxes, the bill dies. Okay, so it's written to do that. In terms of risk-rated subsidies, if you had a law which said healthy people are going to pay in, it made explicit that healthy people pay in and sick people get money, it would not have passed. Okay, just like lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass.
I'm glad you're so proud of it, Jonathan. What you just described is just a simple propaganda campaign. So good for you, I guess. This is the same way that they forced Obamacare on the country, right? The two things that President Obama accomplished in his presidency: first term, Obamacare; second term, the Iran deal. This is how they forced the Iran deal on us, too. You remember what Ben Rhodes said? He described the same process. The average reporter is 27 years old, and they literally know nothing. So you tell them whatever you want, and then they create an echo chamber. So what Gruber described, he calls the stupidity of the American voter. It's not. It's actually the stupidity of the American media. Yes, that is what it is. That is what they used for Obamacare. Ben Rhodes actually describes it correctly and shows you that it's the stupidity of the American media is actually what they're using. And he's proud of it too. Both Obama accomplishments were done through this method. Both guys who were part of it were so proud of themselves that they had to tell everybody. I mean, you know you have confidence in your propaganda campaign, and you have confidence that nobody will know about it when you actually come out afterward and say, oh, did you see that big propaganda campaign I did? But this is no surprise. This is the Democratic strategy on everything. Take the two explanations, the one by Gruber and the one by Ben Rhodes. What are they both essentially saying? They're saying, you tell everyone,
we come in peace,
and then you bust out your ray gun. Alright, so here's the main theme of today's show, which is, why are all the Democrats pandering so hard to the far, loony, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs left? Because the left will destroy them if they don't. They are being held hostage by the left. And if you need evidence of this, look no further than Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the current frontrunner in the Democratic primary, but I think we can all agree that that's not going to last. How can old Joe possibly be the frontrunner? He's the most moderate of the first-tier candidates. So how can he be the frontrunner? Time for me to blow your mind. Are you ready? Most Democrats, not Democratic politicians, not the Democratic Party, most Democrats in this country, just regular people who are Democrat, who vote Democrat, who go to work, who live next door to you, and you say, hey, are you a Republican or a Democrat? They say, oh, a Democrat. Most of them are patriotic, reasonable, fair-minded Americans. I know that seems impossible, but it is true. Most people who vote Democrat aren't obnoxious idiots like the Democratic Party and the Democratic politicians at all. All the Democrats I know in real life are reasonable people. Only the Democratic politicians in the far left are obnoxious idiots. They rely on what Jonathan Gruber termed the stupidity of the American voter. It's the we come in peace strategy. Democrats can pander hard and say crazy things right now because the idiotic far left are the only Democrats paying attention. Normal Democrats in this country are actually Republicans. They just have no idea that they are Republicans. I know this because everyone talks to me about politics because I'm a local person and I do a podcast and I write for the Daily Caller and I've written for The Hill and LifeZette and I've written stuff in the Baltimore. So I'm a political science professor at the local college. So all these things make people want to talk to me about politics. So I talk to people about politics all the time. I talk to people who are Democrats all the time, and they're Republicans. They believe in core Republican values. They believe in the Constitution. It's only the far left that doesn't believe in all of these basic American values. I can't count the number of times I see someone on Twitter point to some esoteric news story with a half-life of 3 hours, and they say, how can anyone vote Democrat knowing this, or when they see this, or when they hear this? The answer is because they don't ever know or see or hear that thing. They don't watch the news. They don't know what happens on a minute-by-minute basis in politics. They mostly hate politics. They don't listen to political podcasts. Their information about politics, the tiny bit of news that they have, is from pop culture, especially between presidential elections. And the Democratic Party owns pop culture. Watch any late night show. There are no conservatives there on the late night shows. You will not see any. You're not allowed to say conservative things on the late night shows, or the far left will go after you. Okay, watch a movie or TV show. There are no Republicans on any movies or TV shows. The characters are either Democrats or they have secret politics that are never mentioned. If you don't pay attention to every little thing that happens in the news, it is literally almost impossible to be a Republican. And the news is such garbage now that it's not even enough to rely on the population to keep themselves informed. Now we have to rely on the population to get their news from a variety of sources. You simply cannot get all your news from one place and have a proper understanding of the reality. You just can't. Every news outlet is an ideological bubble now, all of them. You have to get your news from everywhere. And you have to be able to discern what is actual news and what is garbage. It's harder than ever for normal folks like us to do our job in the political process, which is simply to be informed citizens. You watch right now what's going on. The far left is systematically attacking Joe Biden. Now, I can't stand Joe Biden. Believe me. It brings me no joy to defend him. I know a lot of you out there think he's a weirdo. I think that he's a weirdo too. I think that those videos of him are creepy. But that's not what this is about. This is about the left attacking him politically because, not because they don't care if he's creepy. It's because he's the most moderate Democrat running and he is currently the front runner. They cannot beat you with their ideas. Their ideas are garbage. Their ideas are so intellectually bankrupt, no reasonable person takes them seriously. They cannot beat you with their ideas, so they beat you with 50 allegations of bad touching. Now, like I said, it's not fun for me to defend Joe Biden. Politically, I loathe the man. But that is what's happening to him right now. This attack on him is 100% political. This man has been in positions of power in American politics for decades. He's been hugging and kissing and shoulder massaging and sniffing hair for decades. He was vice president of the United States for 8 years quite recently. In all that time, nobody has been interested in how weird he is. Nobody has had truths that they needed to go on the media and get off their chests. Nobody felt the need to come out and tell their truth about how Joe Biden made them feel until he stood in the way of the left and their goals. Okay, now, suddenly Bernie Sanders supporter Lucy Flores has a truth to tell on every network. And as always, the floodgates open. If someone is a true believer of the Me Too movement and of empowering women to be able to speak out, then they should be disgusted with this whole charade being perpetrated against Joe Biden right now. And believe me, I'm not saying he's not a weirdo. He's weird. He's creepy. I'm saying nobody ever needed to get it off their chest for years. And then all of a sudden, Joe Biden, who is moderate relative to the other candidates in this race, suddenly he becomes an obstacle standing between the far left and power. And guess what? Now, people need to get it off their chest. Now people have truths to tell because he is an obstacle between the far left and power. Suddenly, the time has come to have a problem with Joe Biden being a weirdo, despite the fact that he has been a weirdo all along. Don't give in to the schadenfreude on this one. You know what schadenfreude is. For anyone who doesn't, it's the joy. It's so bad. It's the joy you feel when bad things happen to people that you don't like. And watching Joe Biden get the left's treatment really can fill you with schadenfreude and make you want to help the left pile onto him. And it fills you with schadenfreude because Joe Biden, while he's not part of the far left, he is an enabler of the far left. And so when an enabler of the far left is suddenly getting the treatment of the far left, it makes you feel good inside because you know they deserve it. Boom, schadenfreude. But honestly, if you give in to the schadenfreude, if you do that, you are only helping the far left take down what they see as an obstacle standing between them and power. I say, stand on principle, leave the obstacle up, and create as many more obstacles as you can. When anyone tries to shame you and say, oh my gosh, you're devaluing women if you don't be part of this political attack on Joe Biden, you're devaluing women, you're messing up the world for women. Whenever anyone says all that to you, this is what you should hear.
We come in peace.
Alright, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please subscribe on iTunes, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's it for today. I'm out of here.
We come in peace.
You just listened to Politics for Patriots with Eddie Zipper. Email the show at patriots@eddiezipper.com. And please subscribe.